Hello students, welcome to today's English class. I am Roopna Ravindran, Assistant Professor of English at Government Degree College, Chevalla in Rangareddy district of Telangana state. Today, let's discuss the short story, The Curb in the Sky, written by James Thurber. This story is part of your General English textbook titled English Made Easy, prescribed by Osmania University for BA, BCom, BSc first year, first sem students. Coming to the next slide, here you have the background information, biography of the author. The author is James Thurber, one of the foremost American humorists of the 20th century. He was born on 8th December 1894 and he died on 2nd November 1961. He is a humorist, cartoonist, author, playwright and journalist. He is well known for his relatable and witty characters and themes. He wrote short stories, modern commentary, fables, children's fantasy and letters. About the brief biography of the author. He was born in Ohio. His father was a civil clerk. His mother was a brilliant humorist, it seems, and that is how he inherited this quality of humor from her. His mother's jokes and theatrics influenced many of Thurber's writings. So Thurber attended the Ohio University from 1913 to 1918 and left without taking a degree. This is because the writer was blinded during an accident in his childhood. He gradually lost his vision. Due to this partial blindness, Thurber could not complete his graduation, but it never stopped him for writing or drawing. He was also given honorary degree later from the same university. He was also honored with honorary PhD degrees from Yale University and Williams College. He held several newspaper jobs before going in 1926 to New York City, where he was a reporter for the Evening Post. In 1927, he joined New Yorker magazine. There he was a managing editor and staff. Even from Ohio University, he started writing. He wrote in the college paper The Lantern, and he was also the editor-in-chief of the Sundial magazine, that is the college magazine there. Many of his first stories appeared in the New Yorker magazine. He was later to write an account of his associates there in the Years with Ross, that was published in 1959. His first published drawing in the magazine appeared in 1931. My Life and Hard Times, published in 1933, is a whimsical group of autobiographical pieces. A similar collection of family sketches also appeared later in the Thurber album. So he became equally famous for his simple drawings, cartoons and writings. Many of his drawings featured dogs and family life. He published at least 14 books. He wrote 75 fables. He considered himself primarily as a writer. So some of his famous stories include The Secret Life of Walter Mitty, which was later adapted into a feature film, The Night the Ghost Got In, The Dog That Bit People, The Night the Bed Fell, The Catbird Seat, The Day the Dam Broke, The Unicorn in the Garden. So here we have The Curb in the Sky, a short story written by James Thurber. Main characters of this short story are Dorothy, Charlie Deshler, his friends and Dorothy's parents. This story tells of Charlie Deshler's marriage to Dorothy, a pretty, bright-eyed woman who always finished sentences for other people. She has the habit of constantly interrupting other people when they speak in order to correct their mistakes or sentences. This became a nuisance for other people, but Charlie was not aware of this. He gets married to her, and thus the story proceeds. Charlie was a true raconteur. He loved describing about his traveling experiences, but Dorothy soon changed that habit. Each time he would start a story, she would interrupt him by asking if it is right or wrong, if there is a mistake there, likewise. Soon, Charlie began telling about his dream so that she will not be able to interfere. But then she even started interfering his description of dreams. He began repeating the same dream over and over again, and finally he landed in an asylum a month after. His friends went to visit him there. He was telling a story about his dream, that is a moon story, which we'll read later on in this. And then Dorothy sat there correcting him. So even in the dream, Dorothy is correcting him. Now here we have the story, The Curb in the Sky. You two read along with me. When Charlie Deshler announced that he was going to marry Dorothy, someone said he would lose his mind post haste. So when he announced that he is going to get married to this lady Dorothy, who has the habit of constantly interrupting other people, what his friends said, his friends already had an idea that he will lose his mind post haste, that post catastrophe, after their marriage, which is not good, but it is like a disaster going to be happening. No, said a wit who knew them both, post hoc. Dorothy had begun, when quite young, to finish sentences for people. Sometimes she finished them wrongly, which annoyed the person who was speaking, and sometimes she finished them correctly, which annoyed the speaker even more. So when one person is speaking, you are supposed to listen, wait till that person finishes, and then continue the conversation. So what Dorothy usually does, she finishes the sentences for other people. She just finishes them wrongly and sometimes correctly. So the person who's speaking feels suffocated. He or she doesn't want to continue and they just leave the conversation and they are annoyed. So coming to the next paragraph in the story. When William Howard Taft was, some guest in Dorothy's family house would begin. They would begin a story. Then who would pipe up? Dorothy would pipe up saying, President. The speaker may have meant to say President, or he might have meant to say, he might have meant to say young or Chief Justice of the Supreme Court of United States. He might have meant something else in his mind, but Dorothy would just pipe up and complete the conversation. In any case, he would shortly put on his hat and go home. So the person who's conversing, the person who's talking has no patience and he'll just leave the room. Like most parents, Dorothy's parents did not seem to be conscious that her mannerism was a nuisance. Very likely they thought that it was cute or even bright. It is even probable that when Dorothy's mother first said, Come Dorothy, eat your, and Dorothy said, Spinach dear, the former telephones Dorothy's father at the office and told him about it, and he told everybody he met that day about it, and the next day and the day after. So Dorothy's parents don't realize that her habit is becoming a nuisance to others. So they consider Dorothy as intelligent, and they think that she has awareness about every topic that people discuss, and that is why she is interfering them. So they think it as a bright quality, and they discuss it with other people, other friends, whomever they met that day, the next day, and the day after. So they consider it as a good thing. They don't really realize it as a nuisance for the people. Next paragraph. When Dorothy grew up, she became quite pretty and so even more of a menace. Gentlemen became attracted to her and then attached to her. Emotionally, she steered them, but mentally, she soon began to wear them down. Even in her late teens, she began correcting their English. Not was Arthur, she would say, where prepared. See, most of her admirers tolerated this habit because of their interest in her lovely person, but as time went on and her interest in them remained more instructive than sentimental, they slowly drifted away to less captious if dumber girls. So, what happened in the love relationship and friendships that Dorothy maintained? The other people were not able to cope up with her because she was more instructional in nature. She behaved like a teacher. She used to correct their sentences. English teacher corrects grammar, that is different. But then, if a person is there in your relationship, and if she is not sentimental, and if she is concentrating on the grammar mistakes when you speak, then you are no longer interested in that relationship. So what people did, they just drifted away from her, they just ran away from her to more dumber girls. Even if the girl doesn't speak, it doesn't matter, but if the girl interrupts every now and then, and if she doesn't allow you to speak, then that gives you a headache. So people ran away from her. They did not maintain any relationship with her. No friendship, no love relationship. Next paragraph. Charlie Deshler, however, was an impetuous man of the sweep them off their feet persuasion, and he became engaged to Dorothy so quickly and married her in so short a time that, being deaf to the warnings of his friends, whose concern he regarded as mere jealousy, he really didn't know anything about Dorothy except that she was pretty and bright eyed and to him desirable. So Charlie Deshler was an impetuous man, very hasty. So he just took a quick decision and got married to Dorothy. So he was being deaf to the warnings of his friends. He did not listen to his friends at all. His friends warned him enough, but then Charlie did not listen to them. He got married to her. He just found her very pretty and desirable to him. Dorothy, as a wife, of came of course into her great flowering. She took to correcting Charlie's stories. He had travelled widely and experienced greatly and was a truly excellent raconteur. Dorothy was during their courtship genuinely interested in him and his stories, and since she had never shared any of the adventures he told about, she could not know when he made mistakes in time or in place or in identities. Beyond suggesting a change here and there in the number of verbs, she more or less let him alone. Charlie spoke rather good English anyway. He knew when to say where and when to say was after if. And this was another reason he didn't find Dorothy out. So, after their marriage, Dorothy couldn't correct much of Charlie's sentences because they didn't share the adventures that he told about. Charlie loved visiting places, loved traveling, and he was a true raconteur. So he loved talking about the experiences that he had during his travel. So, as Dorothy was not there with him during these travels prior to their marriage, she couldn't interfere in his descriptions. So in that way, Charlie was lucky enough. He escaped from Dorothy's interruptions. She could only make certain corrections here and there. She could only find one or two grammar mistakes because Charlie's English was really good, and he knew how to use verbs, how to where to use where and was and all. So he spoke rather good English, and she couldn't make any interference into his English. So let us go to the next paragraph. I didn't call on them for quite a while after they were married. So speaker is Charlie's friend. The person who's narrating the story is Charlie's friend. He is saying that after their marriage, I didn't talk to them, I didn't phone them for a while because I liked Charlie and I knew I would feel low if I saw him coming out of the anesthetic of her charms and beginning to feel the first pains of reality. I am sure that she will disturb him, so I don't want to see Charlie in such a pathetic state, such a pity state. So I didn't call them actually. Finally, I did a call. Conditions were, of course, all that I had feared. So whatever I thought about has come true. Charlie began to tell at dinner about a motor trip the two had made to his town, and that I never found out for sure what towns because Dorothy denied almost everything Charlie said. The next day he would say, "We got an early start and drove 200 miles to Fairview." Well, Dorothy would say, "I wouldn't call it early. It wasn't as early as the first day we set out when we got up at about 7 and we drove 180 miles." So the conversation goes on like that. So um, Charlie was not even able to talk properly because every now and then Dorothy interrupts him. She started interrupting him. Now she has a fair idea about the stories that he is sharing, and so every now and then she starts disturbing him. Anyway, when we got to Fairview, Charlie would go on. Desperately, Charlie wants to complete the story, so he would just go on, but Dorothy would stop him. "Was it Fairview that day, darling?" she would ask. Dorothy often interrupted Charlie by asking him if he were right instead of telling him that he was wrong. But it amounted to the same thing, for he would reply, "Yes, I am sure it was Fairview," she would say. "But it wasn't, darling," and then go on with the story herself. She called everybody that she differed from darling. So every now and then Dorothy started interrupting, and she used to ask him questions. "Was it Fairview that day, darling?" She want precise information. In her mind, that is a different place. So she was just confirming, and this became a kind of disturbance to Charlie. He was desperately looking for a change. Once or twice, when I called on them or they called on me, Dorothy would let Charlie get almost to the climax of some interesting account of a happening, and then, like a tackler from behind, just throw him as he was about to cross the goal line. So this became like a hunting game. Whenever Charlie opens his mouth, Dorothy will come and attack him. So it's just like a hunting. Um, there is nothing in life more shocking to the nerves and to the mind than this. Some husbands will sit back amiably, almost as it seems proudly, when their wives interrupt and let them go on with the story. But these are beaten husbands. So the case of Charlie, he is a beaten husband. He did not become beaten. He chose another way. At the end of the second year of their marriage, when you visited the Deschlers, Charlie would begin some outlandish story about a dream he had had, knowing that Dorothy could not correct him on his dreams. They became the only life that he had, that was his own. So When Charlie talked about the actual experiences, Dorothy interfered because those experiences are shared by Charlie and Dorothy as well. So, what Charlie decided? Charlie decided to talk about his dreams. So Dorothy will not have any idea about his dreams. Dreams are his own. So he started talking about some outlandish story about a dream that he had in that night. So he stopped talking about real life experiences. I thought I was running an airplane, he would say, made out of telephone wires and pieces of old leather. I was trying to make it fly to the moon, taking off from my bedroom. About halfway to the moon, however, a man who looked like Santa Claus, only he was dressed in the uniform of a customs officer, waved at me to stop. So his outlandish dream is very much imaginary in nature, that nobody could interfere, nobody could add something into that. He was in a plan made of telephone wires too, so I pulled over to a cloud. Here, he said to me, you can't go to the moon if you are the man who invented this wedding cookie. So it is like a nonsensical dream. It doesn't have much of sense, so that somebody else could contribute something into the explanation. Then he showed me a cookie in the shape of a man and a woman being married. So in his subconscious, he has this problem with marriage, and so he is, even in his dream, he is seeing a man and a woman being married, made of dough, fastened firmly to a round crisp cookie base. He would go on with describing this nonsensical dream. So at the end, what happens? He is describing about this same dream every now and then, and he becomes monomaniac. A person who describes about the same dream, same thing again and again is called monomaniac. Any psychiatrist will tell you that at the end of the way Charlie was going lies madness in the form of monomania. So he is becoming monomaniac. You can't live in a fantastic dream world night in and night out, and then day in and day out, and remain sane. So you cannot live without talking about the real life experiences. You cannot live in the dream. So he is getting monomaniac. The substance began to die slowly out of Charlie's life, and he began to live entirely in shadow. So he started creating a shell on his own. He doesn't have any content to speak on because he is not going anywhere outside, and even if he tries to speak, he is constantly interrupted by Dorothy. And since monomania of this sort is likely to lead in the end to the reiteration of one particular story, Charlie's invention began to grow thin, and he eventually took to telling over and over again the first dream he had ever described, the story of his curious flight toward the moon in an airplane made of telephone wires. It was extremely painful. It saddened all of us. So Charlie is in such a mental state that he is not able to invent new dreams also. He is not able to talk about new dreams. He kept on talking about the same dream in which he went in an airplane to the moon, and he found a customs officer there. The airplane was made of telephone wires. So seeing Charlie talking about this nonsensical thing was extremely painful for his friends. It saddened all of his friends. They were all in a dilemma what to do. After a month or two, Charlie finally had to be sent to an asylum. So his friends decided to send Charlie to a mental hospital. I went out of town when they took him away, but Joe Fulls, who went with him, wrote me about it. So I was not there when he was taken to an asylum, but another friend of mine, that is Joe Fulls, was there when he was taken to the asylum. He seemed to be like it up here right away. He is calmer and his eyes look better. Charlie had developed a wild, hunted look. So he was constantly hunted by Dorothy, and he looked like a victim, he looked like a hunted one. Of course, concluded Joe, he has finally got away from that woman. But luckily, he is in the hospital and he is alone. So, he is not bothered by that woman. He is not interrupted by Dorothy anymore. So, let him relax in the asylum. It was a couple of weeks later that I drove up to the asylum to see Charlie. So, the narrator also went there. Narrator is a friend of Charlie, and so he went there a couple of weeks later and he met Charlie over there. So during that time, he was lying on a cot on a big screened in porch, looking wan and thin. So he was lying on the porch. He looked very tired and very thin. Dorothy was sitting on a chair beside his bed, bright eyed and eager. I was somehow surprised to see her there, having figured that Charlie had at least one sanctuary from his life. So, what his friend had mentioned that Charlie is alone in the asylum, so he is getting a little better. But when this narrator went to meet Charlie, he saw Dorothy by his side. Obviously, if Dorothy is there, then Charlie will look quite mad. He will not be able to tolerate her interruptions in conversation. He began at once to tell me the story of his trip to the moon. He got to the part where a man who looked like Santa Claus waved at him to stop. He was in a plane made of telephone wires too, said Charlie. So Charlie is such a pathetic state that he again started talking about the same outlandish dream. So I pulled over to the curb. So he is just murmuring the same dream, and this narrator found him in such a sad state because again his wife is there and she is constantly interrupting her husband. So, when Charlie said this, who is interrupting again? No, you pulled over to the cloud, said Dorothy. No, no, no. Whatever you are saying is not correct. Last time you said that you pulled over to a cloud. It is not a curb. There aren't any curbs in the sky. There couldn't be. You pulled over to a cloud. So again, she is mercilessly interrupting his conversations. Charlie sighed and turned slightly in his bed and looked at me. So he gave such a sad look to his friend. He is caught, he is hunted, and he has no escape from there. He is like trapped in her world. Dorothy looked to me too with a pretty smile, but Dorothy is not realizing the consequences of her interruption. She is very happy to correct him, she is very happy to interrupt him, and she is with all smiles. He always gets that story wrong, she said. That is how the story finishes. So we have a mixed feeling. We don't realize certain times about the action, about the consequences of the action. So Dorothy also doesn't realize the consequences of her habit. She has this habit even from her childhood, and she was not even corrected by her parents and her friends. So she continued it all her life long, and her partner is in such a state that he is losing his mind. He is not even able to think on his own, and he is not allowed to talk a sentence on his own. Such is the pathetic state of the life of Charlie Tesla. So coming back to the slide, here we have vocabulary and the new words that you find in the story. Curb means a check or restraint on something. That is, there are plans to introduce tougher curbs on insider dealing. Acquainted means you make someone aware or familiar with. New staff should be acquainted with fire exit routes. Asylum. Asylum is an institution for the care of people who are mentally ill. He had been committed to an asylum. Impetus means acting quickly without any thought or care. She might live to rue this impetus decision. Interrupt means to stop the continuous process of an activity. The buzzer interrupted his thoughts. Next is know all. Know all means a person who behaves as if they know everything. He is a know all. In the story, Dorothy is a know all. Rancourtier is a person who tells anecdotes in a skillful and amusing way, who talks about their travel experiences in an amusing way, in a funny way. The family enjoys listening to Grandpa talk about his life because he is an exceptional raconteur. He talks very well. He talks in such a skillful manner that the whole family is very much interested to listen to the Grandpa. Here you have a paragraph. It is like a summary of the story that we have already read, and you have to fill in the blanks with the missing word that is given here. Yeah, let us read this. Charlie Deshler was an self-assured man before he married Dorothy. So how was he? He was impetuous. That is why he married Dorothy. He doesn't care much about, and he is very hasty in his actions. That is why we say that he is an impetuous man, self-assured man. Since her childhood, Dorothy has been a who cannot help correcting and instructing other people. So Dorothy thought that she knew everything. So she is a know-all. Next sentence. As she is quite good looking, men have always found her Tell me the answer. Attractive. Yet, although she stirs them up emotionally, mentally, she completely wears them down because of her habit of constantly constantly correcting them. Despite his friends' warnings, Charlie Deshler marries Dorothy. At first, he succeeds quite well in himself from her constant interference. At first, he was able to protect himself from her constant interference because she didn't share any of the stories and his English was rather good. So, here in the blank, you have to write protecting. Now, coming to the next sentence. Having traveled widely, he can talk about things and places she is not with. She is not acquainted with. However, as Dorothy gradually becomes familiar with her husband's stories, it is possible for her to revert to her old habit of interrupting and correcting. So, in the blank, you have to write interrupting. In vain, Charlie seeks refuge in his dreams. They are the only stories he can tell without fear of interruption because only he can know about them. Gradually, they become the only life he has and that he can call his own. Finally, Charlie has to be taken to a mental asylum. Yet, even there, he is not safe from his wife. When the narrator goes to visit him, she is sitting by his side as bright and cheerful as ever. So, here in the blank, you write cheerful, happy. When Charlie starts to tell his one remaining story, she interrupts with, "No, you pulled over to a cloud. There aren't any curves in the sky. The inevitable has happened. The dream has been repeated so often that Dorothy knows it by heart and feels completely to add her own corrections." What is the word left? Yes, qualified. Completely qualified to add her own corrections. Here you have essay questions. So you will be asked to write an essay. First one is write a character sketch of Dorothy. So you have to talk about the character of Dorothy. about her habit and how her parents considered herself as innocent and all that. Narrate in your own words Charlie's outlandish dream. You have to talk about the dream in which Charlie traveled to the moon with an airplane. What was the nature of the personality clash between the wife and the husband in the story? How did the clash affect Dorothy and Charlie as individuals? So, write elaborately these essays. So, here you have the links, the references where you get the information about the author, and this Mother Goose Caboose, that website has the story. So you to read the story, you can go to the website and then read it if you don't have the textbook with you. So that's all for today. So I hope you enjoyed listening to this witty story written by James Thurber. Thank you for listening.